Welcome to the Desert Blockchain Camp's open house on Saturday, September the 25th, 2021. It's 11 a.m. Arizona time and Pacific time. Let's stop the screen sharing. My name is Jay Carpenter. I'm founder of Desert Blockchain, and we are at Desert Blockchain Camp on 27th Avenue and Georgia near the Grand Canyon University campus in Phoenix, Arizona. And this is our Saturday session where we're going to be, for the first hour, we're going to do kind of a workshop on Blockchain 101, just kind of an introduction to blockchain. We do have some folks here behind me. That's Shaw. And some other folks will be stopping by. So if you're not familiar with Desert Blockchain, we have events. We're now having events every Saturday here at the Desert Blockchain Camp at 27th Avenue in Georgia, in Phoenix, Arizona, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the way it goes is the first hour is like a workshop where we'll do different topics on decentralization, blockchain, non-fungible tokens, various topics of interest. We've also been focusing on the Arizona blockchain and wearables, applied research centers, funding mechanism with matching funds up to 2.5 million for blockchain research over, I believe it's a 4-year period, and 2.5 million for wearables research over an equal 4-year period. And then there's remaining funds from the 2019 program of about $500,000 in matching funds for blockchain research. So if you're interested in that, please check out our prior sessions. We've done a lot of material on that. We've also gathered a group of people that are interested in participating in the research teams and so forth. And they have excellent backgrounds in decentralization and blockchain. So I would recommend you take a look at that. And below the YouTube video here is a link to the presentation that has profiles and resumes of folks that are interested in participating in teams to do research on blockchain and wearables and so forth. So take a look at that. It's a great opportunity. The application time period actually starts today, the 25th. There was a notice sent out by the Arizona Commerce Authority regarding the rules and the application process and so forth. And I'll be putting that up on the presentation that's linked below. So that's kind of an introduction. From noon until 1, we will be turning off the audio and so forth, and that'll be just a networking session here at camp. We do provide pizza free of charge for folks attending. And then at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we'll have kind of an open session where we'll open up the stream again, and it'll be just kind of an open conversation about the Arizona blockchain and wearables applied research centers. We'll also talk about some of the current events that are happening in decentralization and cryptocurrencies, such as China's announced ban on all cryptocurrencies. That was announced on Thursday. So tune in for that at 1 o'clock, 1 to 2. So that's basically it. If you have any questions and you're watching this on the live stream, you can post those questions on the right side chat section. If you are a Desert Blockchain citizen, which is $10 per month via Patreon, you can join us via Zoom and actively participate in these sessions. Now, just a little bit of the fun about the funding of Desert Blockchain and Desert Blockchain camps. We are completely community funded. We do not take sponsorships or any of that. This is in line with our decentralized theme. So if you join as a Desert Blockchain citizen, you can get advanced viewing of presentations for sessions. You can join the sessions virtually via Zoom, and there will be other benefits that will be announced as we move forward. So we do appreciate all the folks that have become Desert Blockchain citizens via Patreon for $10 a month. We really appreciate that. It helps defray the costs, and we intend to include additional benefits in the future for Desert Blockchain citizens, and the people that have been Desert Blockchain citizens the longest will get priority on various benefits and things. So that's about it for the introductory items. And I'm going to go back into screen sharing, and we will do our introduction to blockchain. Something that I highly recommend you check out, which is called Blockchain 101. And bear with me just a second while I go to that website. So this is a website by a fellow named Anders Brownworth, Brownsworth. And he was with an entity or a project called Circle. And this is basically what I consider to be the best introduction to blockchain that I've seen. And we'll have to suffer through a little bit of a advertisement here. Skip the ad. And so actually, so Anders Brownworth, and this is the video that normally plays. I'm not gonna play the video, but I do recommend that you watch it. And instead of playing the video, go below the video in this section and go to this link. And this will bring up actually an interactive demonstration where you can put in data on the website. Let's go to the hashing, and you can actually see how this works. So this is something called hashing. And if you're not familiar with hashing, this is a way to take some amount of data and basically create what's called a fingerprint, or this string of letters and numbers that is unique to whatever that information is. And this is really the core of blockchain. So, and we'll go through a little bit more of an explanation of this in a moment, but this thing called hashing is really an elegant way to establish the overall trust that we rely upon in blockchain. And this is really an important concept if you're going to understand how this thing called blockchain works, and Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies and all that sort of thing. I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a moment while I elaborate on this point, because I think it's pretty key. So, you know, I hear a lot of people say, hey, there's nothing behind Bitcoin, right? It's going to collapse. It's going to go to zero. It's going to go to one, all that sort of thing. And I'm going to turn just a little bit so you can see Shaw as well. So a lot of people say, hey, Jay, this Bitcoin thing, this cryptocurrency, it's all a scam. There's nothing behind it. And a couple things that they miss. Number one is there's an article called you don't understand Bitcoin because you think money is real. Okay. I highly recommend that. I'll put it in the links to the YouTube here. But the basic idea is people always say, well, there's nothing behind this cryptocurrency stuff. Well, there is something behind it. And what's behind it is the math that's associated with this thing called hashing that we're going to go over in just a moment. And that's the foundation of the trust. And so that's what people miss is this hashing cryptographic construct is what creates a foundation of trust. And the trust that's associated with decentralization and cryptocurrency is radically different than the trust that's associated with centralized fiat currencies. What do I mean by that? Well, with centralized fiat currencies, we trust the issuer, which is usually some government sovereignty, okay? And I'm not saying we shouldn't or anything else. I'm just saying that we are turning over our trust to the government, the United States government, the European Union, whatever it is, whatever country in the world that's issuing this. And we are in what I call a custodian relationship. And the same thing holds true with banks, with insurance companies, and so forth. So in other words, we are trusting the integrity of a particular institution, be it a government, be it an insurance company or whatever. We are in a custodian relationship. By custodian, we mean we are trusting them to basically look out for our best interests, okay? They are in what's called a fiduciary responsibility, meaning that they have this responsibility to act on our behalf in a trusted fashion. That is not the case with these decentralized constructs. With a decentralized construct like Bitcoin, Ethereum, you name it, the trust relationship is exactly the opposite. In these relationships, we assume that everybody else in the community would instantly and gladly take our resources. So if, I know Shaw, I trust Shaw, but I assume, and she assumes, that if either one of us had the other person's private keys, there's a high probability we would take their assets. And that's a really important distinction that you should keep in mind in this whole decentralized community. Because in centralization, we're relying upon the integrity and the trustworthiness of these institutions. In decentralization, we are relying upon the trustworthiness of the math that's underlying these constructs, which is the hashing algorithm that we're going to talk about in just a minute, and I'm going to show you. And we assume that everybody in the community, all the humans that are involved, are completely untrustworthy. Now, which would I rather trust the safety of my family to? I would rather trust the safety of my family to a construct where I distrust everybody else. So by distrusting everybody else and trusting the math, I'm more comfortable with that. I am more, that's a better construct in my view. In the centralized authorities, and I'm not saying anything against them, I'm just saying that we are trusting that their integrity will remain intact, and I'm not saying it won't, but if there's a cyber breach or whatever, then all of a sudden that trust goes out the window. Only if there's a breach in the mathematical integrity of this thing called hashing do I lose my trust in a construct like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any of the other decentralized cryptographic proofs and cryptographic constructs that rely upon this hashing thing. That's the only time I would lose my trust in this construct. And it has happened. We're going to be looking at something called SHA-256 and SHA-1, has been compromised and is no longer trustworthy. So that can happen. So that's kind of a long introduction to this thing called blockchain 101, but I think that's an important thing, an important context to keep in mind as you're looking at this. So let's see how this hashing thing works, and then we'll go on to the next item. Okay, so now I'm on the website. You can see the link to the website up here, Anders Brownworth, .com, blockchain, and then hash. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to click through these various tabs that are up here on the top. Hopefully you can see that. But what you'll see in this SHA-256 hash is, and I believe SHA stands for Secure Hashing Algorithm, and it's 256 bits is how this part is derived. So now let's take a look at how this hashing thing works. So down here you can see the hash, okay? And then this is the actual hash of where there's nothing basically to hash in this box. So what happens? What happens is, watch when I start to put in my name, J, you see how it changes? This whole thing has changed now. For some reason, I'm having a hard time highlighting the hash, but just keep an eye on this hash down here. So when I put in a capital J, you can see the hash starts with 6DA43, and then it goes on. Now watch what happens when I put in a lowercase hash or a lowercase j. All of a sudden, it's completely different. So that little change, going from a capital J to a lowercase j, the entire hash, this fingerprint, has changed. And it's easy to see in a glance, once you're familiar with how this works, that this lowercase j is not the same as this uppercase j. The whole thing has changed. And by the way, not only does this work for one individual letter of the alphabet, you could put the entire Library of Congress into this box, this data box, in basically here. And if so much as a comma changed to a period in the entire Library of Congress, you would have a completely different fingerprint. Now that creates a very secure construct where all of a sudden I can instantly determine out of a huge amount of data that something has changed. The data is no longer what it was just prior to when the hash changed. So let me continue, and you can just watch that hash as I put in my name. See how I put in JAY and it's changed to 0C9A blah blah blah. And then when I put in even a space, oops, and I put in each letter of my name, the hash instantly changes. There's a calculation that's going on in the background that's indicating to me that something has changed. And that's really important, because let's assume that everybody in the decentralized community is untrustworthy, completely untrustworthy. I'm relying upon the math to indicate to me that somebody has changed something that I don't know about. It doesn't matter what it is, it just means that something has changed. So that's the hashing. And I'm looking in the chat for the live stream. I don't see any questions at this point. Shadi, do you have any questions about that? Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. Okay, and feel free to chime in if you think about it. Shah, by the way, has a lot of experience with blockchain and sustainability and so forth. And our pizza's arriving, so this is a good thing. So let's go on. Hopefully you've got the idea. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Jose has the pizza. Show him the pizza. Thank you, Jose. Crazy Gems Pizza. It's awesome. 15th Avenue and Indian School. So let's go on to the next tab, which is block. Okay, so how does this work? This is where we get the block from blockchain. Okay, so notice this. Notice that we've got this labeled as block one. We've got this thing called a nonce, and I'll explain that in just a moment. We again have an area that's and if you guys want to go ahead. There's not much left. There's one thin slice.
Yeah, they only gave me a half pizza.
See, this is what we're talking about in terms of trustworthiness.
Zero trust.
Zero trust right here, even with the pizza. That's Jose. I do not trust him to deliver the pizza intact. So if we could hash the pizza, we would determine that something happened between the time Jose picked it up at Crazy Gems and the time it arrived here. We don't know for sure that it was Jose that did something to the pizza, but let's assume that he moved one pepperoni from point A to point B. The entire hash would change. So, so excellent. So don't trust Jose with your pizza delivery. Okay, so let's get back to blockchain now. And by the way, again, you can do all this yourself on the website, andersbrownworth.com/blockchain/block. So let's see how this block thing works. So this is a block. And what do I mean by that? I mean, this is labeled as block number one. It has this thing called the nonce, and it has this thing called a hash down here. And look at this. Notice how the hash starts with 4 zeros. That's pretty unique. And that's really what we're looking for when we create a block. And watch what happens when we change one digit of this nonce thing. We change it from an 8. Okay, when we take away the 8, all of a sudden the hash changes. And if we put a 7 instead of an 8, you can see that the hash no longer starts with 4 zeros. It actually starts with CF38. And that's just that one little change in this nonce thing. And all of a sudden the hash is no longer what it was. Now, if we change the hash back to, or the nonce back to 8, you can see, voila, we have a hash that starts with 4 zeros. So I like to think of this nonce thing as like, you can imagine like a jigsaw puzzle that's laid out on the table. You know, you get this really big jigsaw puzzle, but you've got one little piece that's missing. And the trick is that whoever finds that one piece out of the big pile of jigsaw puzzle pieces, who can be sorting through the jigsaw puzzle stack of all the pieces that are available. Each person is, you know, let's say you've got 1 million card tables out with 1 million puzzles that are identical, and each 1 million participants in the community is sorting through this big stack of puzzle pieces, and whoever finds that first piece that fits in the puzzle and completes the puzzle, that person wins the mining reward. And that's really the contest that's going on. And the likelihood of finding that one piece in the, you know, huge mountain of remaining puzzle pieces is basically random. So this is structured so that it's almost, it is like a random draw out of the entire community as to who can find that one missing puzzle piece that completes the puzzle. And there might be players that have multiple card tables with multiple puzzles that only have one piece missing, and they've got multiple huge piles of remaining puzzle pieces. So your chance of filling in that one puzzle piece that's missing increases by the number of card tables that you've got, and the number of remaining puzzle mountain stacks that you're going through trying to find that one piece that fits the puzzle. And that's how this thing called hash power works, where there are huge warehouses like this warehouse that we're in that are just filled with computers that do one and only one thing, which is search for that one missing piece of the puzzle that they can put in first and win the mining reward. Because the mining reward right now, I think, is about $500,000 over 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Give or take.
Yeah. So it's about, I think it's about 10, well, I don't know, X number of Bitcoin. Every 10 minutes is awarded to whoever finds that missing puzzle piece first. And that's what we're talking about with miners. We're talking about hash power. We're talking about all that. And that's a core piece of this trust that's established in the community among, for lack of a better term, I'll call them thieves. We're dealing with untrustworthy humans with trustworthy math. Everybody's searching for that one missing piece of the puzzle. And that's what's going on. That's what gives me the assurance that I would trust my wealth, the security of my family to this construct. And this is really the essence of this thing called decentralization, cryptocurrency, cryptography, blockchain, what have you, Web 3.0. This is really the essence. So let's do a little playing around with this block thing. And even if I change the block number see, I took the block number away, all of a sudden it goes pink, and you know that there's something out of order. The hash is completely changed. Let's say I put in 2 and I hit, well, you can see that 2 doesn't work. If I put 1 back in, you can see 1 works. But let's say that I want to call this block number 2, okay? So how can I get this thing to comply with what the entire community agrees upon? And by the way, here's another point that I think is important. When we talk about money, okay, when we talk about this, I'm gonna stop screen sharing because this is a really important. Okay, when we talk about this thing, people would say, okay, Jay, I agree upon that. That's a $20 bill. It's issued by the United States. It says legal tender, blah, blah, blah. What is this? This is a piece of paper. That's all it is. But I agree, Shaw agrees, Jose agrees, we all agree that this has a certain value. So when people say Bitcoin's backed by nothing, it's a scam, blah, 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 what it really is, it's agreement. And that's the key to understanding what's going on in this cryptocurrency realm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That money's agreement?
Yes, it is yes, it is. The value of money is decided between the two parties. For example, you show me a $20 bill.
Mm-hmm.
I can believe it's a $20 bill, or I can believe it's fake,
Right.
or I can believe it's worth $10 or $100. Same thing with any other currency, euros,
Mm-hmm.
pesos, what have you.
Yep.
Same thing with crypto.
Same thing with crypto. So here's something. This is a Harkins Theater. This is a movie gift card. Okay. Why do I believe this has value? If I offered this to Jose and I said, hey Jose, here's a $25 gift card from Harkins Theater, I'll sell it to you for $5. Well, if Jose goes on a website for Harkins, he looks it up, looks up the number, says it's worth $25, then there's a high probability he'd buy it for $5. Or the same thing is true with this Starbucks card, another gift card. Or here's a Subway sandwich gift card. So what gives these value? They're not backed by the United States government. They're not backed by the European government. And yet, if, you know, we took a little time, I'm sure Shaw or Jose would give me something for this. Let's say it's worth $50 for Subway. If I said, hey, Jose, check it out, go to the Subway site, it's worth $50. Will you give me 50 cents for it? He'd probably give me 50 cents. Now, he doesn't need the Subway card because he's full of pizza right now from picking up the pizza. But Shaw, who hasn't had pizza, might be willing to give me 50 cents. So you can think of these cryptocurrencies, which people say is, you know, it's a scam, it's worthless, blah, 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 like a big basket of these gift cards that extends to basically pretty much any item. So that's a little bit about, you know, trust and cryptocurrency and value and money. But the basic thing that, the basic point that you have to keep in mind is money is really agreement. It's not about some sort of intrinsic value. If I had Southwest Airlines frequent flyer points and I could sell those to either Shaw or Jose, and they could confirm that the frequent flyer rights are worth a trip, a round trip somewhere, they would pay me something for that. I'm pretty sure. So that's a little bit of a rant. Let's go back to the blockchain demonstration and let's see how this trust thing works. Okay, so here we're back to our block, and you can see it's out of order. The hash thing down here does not start with 4 zeros. We know that something is off. So what if we press this button down here called mine? Now watch what happens. So the browser is actually doing calculations in the background. It is running through, actually, you know what? I'm gonna have to stop it and let's see what happens. Stop it. I think I've got to take the nonce out. Unresponsive. Let's exit page. Sorry about that. Yeah, so let's start over. Okay, so here we're at the block. Let's take away the nonce. And what the nonce is doing, and you can see this, actually, Anders explains this very, very well. I'm kind of jumping around and adding some things, but what Anders does is he starts with 1, and you can see that the hash is not starting with 4 zeros. He goes to 2, and again, the hash is not starting with 4 zeros. So if we do the mine, let's see if this will work, and see if it solves the puzzle. And I forgot to change the block number, but let's see if it comes up with the same nonce, the same puzzle piece that we saw originally. Yep, there it is, 720608. Now let's change the block number to 2. Let's take out the nonce and see what puzzle piece appears now so that we get a hash with 4 zeros starting the hash, because this will work basically. But what's happening right now is the program in the background is trying all different nonces to find a hash. There it is. So the nonce, the missing puzzle piece to win the block reward, let's say, is 69926. And that missing puzzle piece completes the puzzle, and we get a winning hash that starts with 4 zeros. It doesn't matter what the remaining amount is, or remaining hash is. It's the key is that it starts with 4 zeros. So that's how this thing called mining works. And this was part of the genius of Satoshi Nakamoto. And it wasn't, I mean, this actually, I don't think this was not invented by Satoshi Nakamoto. But the genius part of Bitcoin was the mining rewards, this game that people all over the world are playing, trying to find that nonce, that missing puzzle piece to get the block rewards in the Bitcoin blockchain. So that's really the, in my opinion, my view, and I believe others agree, the real genius, the breakthrough to do this decentralized trust, this that prevents something called corrupted blockchain or double spend, was instituting this mining reward. And that was like the spark that set this whole thing ablaze. You guys have any? Okay, cool. Okay, so that's a demonstration of how a block is formed. And let's do another little example. Let's say the block has J in it. That's what we've got for information content in this block. And let's hit the mine and see what kind of nonce comes up, what sort of missing puzzle piece happens to be calculated. So we got 4 zeros in the hash, and it's calculating away, it's grinding away, as Graham Cohen says, and voila, it came up with the missing puzzle piece, which is 81793. That's the magic number that we could consider to be a random number that completes the puzzle and gives us a hash with 4 zeros. That's communicated worldwide, and everybody agrees that whoever found that hash with that nonce first is the winner of the block reward, basically. So that's that. So let's put this back to 1. Let's take this out. Let's clear this. Do another mining, just to show you that it will find the nonce that was identical to the first nonce that we looked at, and you'll also see that the hash is identical. And this really is the foundation of the trust in a community of assumed thieves that forms the basis of agreement for the value in this thing called Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies that are relying upon this mining process, which is like finding a puzzle piece in a huge stack of puzzle pieces that completes the puzzle. So hopefully that's clear. And again, you can watch the video, the 18-minute video where Anders walks through this whole process with you in a very clear explanation. That video, by the way, has about 1.6 million views. And that is a testament to, you know, the value of this particular demonstration. And I've had a lot of people tell me that, you know, they didn't really understand blockchain. They didn't really get it until they watched this blockchain demo and started to play around with this construct. So let's go to the next tab and see what this has to offer. Okay, so this is showing how blocks are formed and how they kind of stack one on top of the other. So here is a block. The Genesis block always starts with a hash of all zeros. And everybody agrees on, you know, all zeros is all zeros, okay? And then what happened was, let's take this nonce away. Now you can see that by changing that nonce, we've got a red signal, basically. Something is off, okay? But then when we hit mine, again, it's going through calculation in the background, and voila, it came up with a puzzle piece that that completes the puzzle, takes all zeros for the hash, and then finds a hash that starts with 4 zeros, and that is based upon this nonce of 11316. So that completes the first block. Now, if we did this, and again, we put my name in, J, take away the nonce, and we do the mine, and see what happens. It's doing a calculation in the browser based upon the code. And I believe, well, I know that the code for this particular demonstration is available on GitHub. So you could actually download that code, check the code, make sure that the integrity is it's doing what you think it's supposed to do, and you could validate the trustworthiness of this particular construct. So it's still searching for the nonce that will give 4 leading zeros in the hash based upon the information of block 1 with data containing J, all that. I am confident that we'll find the hash that solves the puzzle based upon, well, it will find the nonce that's, there we go. So it did all these calculations, tried all these different numbers, and came up with 274,981 as the winning puzzle piece that creates a hash with 4 leading zeros with the data of capital JAY as the payload. Now, watch this. When if we now need to think, well, I don't know. Let's mine the second block, and let's put some data in here just for the fun of it. So we'll put Shaw's name in, and now we hit mine, and the program in the background is going through the calculation. It has, you'll notice it has taken the hash from block number 1 that starts with 4 zeros and then included it as the previous hash in block number 2. So based upon the block being labeled as number 2, new data being Shaw in the data field, and the previous hash starting with 4 zeros and then 982, the algorithm has done the calculation and found a missing puzzle piece for the nonce of 33072, and that completes the puzzle. And now we have a valid block that anybody in the community can look at and agree is aligned with the fundamental constructs of the, let's call it the Bitcoin community, the fundamental rules of the Bitcoin community or the Ethereum community or whatever it is, anybody will look at this and say, aha, the person or the mining entity that came up with the nonce of 33072 that produced a hash with 4 leading zeros, they are the winner. And they will look at this and they'll say, okay, this is the longest block. This block has two valid blocks, and therefore we're going to stop paying attention to those 2 blocks, and we're going to try to find the missing puzzle piece for block number 3, which we'll do in just a moment. So that's how the trust is manifest among the community, and the data that's contained in these 2 blocks, the data being JAY, capital JAY, and then block number 2, the data being capital SHA, that's how this trust is built. And anybody can look at this and instantly tell, is this aligned with the rules and the agreements of the community, or is something off? Okay, so let's go to block number 3, and we'll take away the nonce, and we'll put some new data in here. So we put Jose in, and you can see that the successful hash from block number 2 that starts with 4 zeros and then A1C has been carried forward in the previous. You can see that we don't have a valid block yet because we haven't found the nonce for block number 3. And we've added some new data, Jose, and you can see that the hash that's created when we added Jose and took away the nonce starts with 8AC57. That's not a winning combination. It's not a successful completed puzzle. So once we do the mining, we start the mining operation. You can see it's churning away and it's calculating in the background. It's trying various nonces and see how long it takes. Voila, it came up with a winning puzzle piece of 41440 that takes into account we've added new data called Jose, and voila, we have the hash down at the bottom, the very bottom, that starts with 4 zeros and continues onward in the same format. So, you guys have any questions?
So I just have a comment. So the nonce, based on what I can see, is that it's a very hard number to compute,
Yes,
but very easy to calculate.
that's exactly right. So Jose is making a great point that this hashing thing, you can glance at the hash, and if you're familiar with hashing, you can tell if something has changed. You can't go the other way. You can't take the hash and determine, the information that from which that hash was derived. It's a one-way function. That's what it's called, and that's really, really important. So that's a great point. Anything else? And again, keep in mind that we could be doing this process on the entire Library of Congress, maybe combined for block number 1, and then block number 2 might be. Hey, Randy. I'm sorry.
Here's what it was.
Okay, good. So we had another participant join us, and the second contents of block number 2 might be in composed of an entire repository of a huge amount of data. Let's take, for example, all the data archives of the Vatican or some other government or whatever. So it's really an amazing construct that establishes the foundation for this decentralized community of trust among assumed untrustworthy participants. So yeah. So any other questions or comments, whatever? Okay, cool. So let's go on to the next item, which is distributed ledger, I believe. And then we're almost out of time. So let's take a look at distributed. Okay, so what's going on here is we now have this new piece called Peer A, okay? So Peer A and Peer B and Peer C and on and on and on. This could go on infinitely. Now we have a community that's involved. We have 3 peers or 3 nodes that are active in this construct, and we can play around with, seeing if one node agrees with the other node and so forth. So let's just do that. So first of all, let's validate. Notice that the nonce is 11316, and you can see that the hash is 4 zeros, and that agrees with peer B for block number 1, and peer C also agrees with all that. So let's say that for some reason peer A gets, their data gets corrupted. Be careful, Jose, that's live. I don't think there's any, Jose is venturing into the target range of Crypto Cannoneer, and which, if you're not familiar with that, you should definitely check it out. It's this target range where you can fire tennis balls or shoot water jets, and you can control it via Telegram remotely from anywhere in the world. It's Shane Sandler of Crypto Cannoneer, Blockchaingerous, has created this. This is currently a project that's a candidate for funding via the Stellar community, and he's including Stellar, the cryptocurrency, in this construct. So it's really cool. Check some of our prior videos because he's done some demonstrations on this. But let's go back to the distributed blockchain, okay? So this shows how this thing can be scaled out around the world, around the globe, and it works basically. So again, we've got 3 peers, peer A, B, and C, and let's modify the nonce, or let's do this. Let's just put in one thing that, let's put in J again, and now you can see that the data that peer A has no longer agrees with peer B and C. Okay, see that? They're not in agreement. Now, peer A can mine this, and it will come up blue or valid, but you can quickly see that it does not agree with peer B and C in just a moment. So and anybody looking at peer A's data and blockchain can tell in an instant that it will not agree with peer B and C. And it's possible that let's see, that I remove the, I did not remove the knots, so might have to restart this. We don't have any questions in the chat on YouTube. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so it did calculate it. Did it. Anyway. So I'm not going to start this over at this point. I'm going to basically conclude the session because we've only got 5 minutes left, and people are sitting here at Desert Blockchain Camp eager to dive into the pizza, whatever's remaining after Jose has pilfered the pizza and can't hash the pizza. So anyway, I'm going to go off screen share and basically conclude the workshop. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how the fundamentals of Blockchain 101 works, and what's underlying this trust mechanism that can be scaled out globally. It can scale it has scaled over the last 13 years. On the 27th of October, we're going to be having a session on our Desert Blockchain Monthly session at 7 p.m. Arizona and Pacific time. We're going to be celebrating the 13th birthday of Bitcoin, the publishing of the Bitcoin white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever that was. And so what we just went over, all the hashing, the block formation, all that stuff, that's been going on continuously now for 13 years. And there are, if you're not familiar, the Bitcoin market value is right around $1 trillion. Slightly less than $1 trillion. It's been going on successfully for 13 years. Every day that the Bitcoin blockchain survives is another day that it has proven its trustworthiness, its viability, because if you could somehow defeat what we just went over, you could earn almost $1 trillion. You would become the richest person in the world if you could figure out how to defeat the Bitcoin blockchain. And again, I mentioned that I would rather trust the safety of my family to this decentralized construct that starts with the premise that everybody is untrustworthy. That's a safer bet for me. That makes me sleep better at night than the turning my trust over in a custodian fashion to a fiduciary centralized construct where I'm trusting that they keep their house in order and nothing goes wrong. Okay, that's just me. But that's the fundamental difference between the centralized world that we lived in up until October 31 of 2008, and now we have this decentralized world where we have a whole new set of tools that you just saw that opens up a whole new world of constructs, societal trust, societal agreement, societal methods to take the things that we've done as human beings in the past and move them forward in a new way. It's an alternative way. It's still very much a prototype. There's a whole bunch of things that have not been worked out yet, and we'll probably talk about those next week for our workshop. And we didn't get through this entire Blockchain 101 construct, but I strongly urge that you watch the 18-minute video by Anders Brownworth and then start to play around with these numbers on your own in the browser model. So again, my name is Jay Carpenter. We're going to take our lunch break now. We're going to go back to just kind of a placeholder screen. We're going to turn off the microphone and tune back in at 1 o'clock when we'll open it up for community conversation. I think what we'll talk about is the Thursdays, which was the 23rd of September, marks a major government in the world, China, officially declaring that all cryptocurrencies are illegal and banned. And that is a huge, basically putting the rubber on the road, and let's see what happens. Let's see if all the might of China can actually stop and block cryptocurrencies in a nation of what, 1.3 billion people. So anyway, that's what we'll start the topic on. I'll also have some updates on the ARC funding, and we'll go over that a little bit. So tune in about an hour, and if you happen to be in the neighborhood, stop by and grab some pizza. So thank you for your time and attention, and we will go back to screen share on